Good evening. Welcome to another Big 12 Mafia Show. I am Moen. To my left is the Wild Ute. Absent is Nate. He had some family stuff he had to take care of tonight, so we will be shouldering the load for him. We might have some special guests stop by. You never know. Knock on wood. How was your day,
Right.
Ben? You?
Man, it's been an awesome day. Awesome, busy day and stuff. And I can't wait to get into the topic at hand. I'm serious. This title made me laugh 3 or 4 times before we actually went live and stuff because it really is the start of the painful severing of UNC and NC State. That Wolfpack backpack, dubbed on Big 12 Mafia Show, is starting to show its cracks and severing and severing and severing. Knew it all along and stuff. And at least that predicted that on this side and everything based on a variety of factors. I can't wait to get into it, talk about that issue, and also everything else going on in college football. It's craziness right now. I'm stoked for this show. How you doing, Mon?
Oh, I'm doing all right. For those who don't know, there was a bill that was put through committee and passed unanimously without discussion in the legislature down in North Carolina that would require all FBS programs to play each other once every 6 years, at least once every 6 years. So that's what we're talking about. Is this giving slack to the Wolfpack backpack to kind of allow them to separate but continue playing each other from different conferences? Or is this more of a move to just solidify the Wolfpack backpack and show there are no cracks in the Wolfpack backpack?
I don't know why you'd come up with a bill to require teams to play each other if you expected them to be in the same conference.
Easy, because they would be conference games and they wouldn't lose out on lucrative out of conference games.
So I guess you can look at it in a lot of different ways. And the way that I look at it is basically bridging that one thing that was a big concern amongst a lot of folks, and that was NC State and UNC not playing each other every year if they were to sever, right? This is a bridge to that risk right there. And this mitigates that risk too by requiring those two schools and other schools in state to play each other. And so I think that this is a huge point towards the severing of the Wolfpack backpack. And really, I think that you're going to see both teams in different conferences. And there are a lot of different reasons for that, y'all. There are tons of them and everything. We can break them all out and everything. But really, at the end of the day, this is the case. Two schools in North Carolina don't warrant as much money as the SEC would bring to the table. They're not accretive. That means that they don't bring enough value to make themselves worth baseline value in the conference. And there are some strategic ads and everything else, some ancillary factors, but still at the end of the day, NC State is just a school that is not a P2 caliber school. As far as viewership goes, as far as a lot of different factors, that they just do not warrant P2 viewership, like in P2 entry. And so UNC is that type of school with its brand. But really, when you combine them together, it's basically like you're getting 3/4 and not a full dollar there. So you're not bringing full value. UNC is a value maximizer, its brand and everything else, but NC State is certainly not. There's nothing that you can point to that shows that NC State warrants a P2 entry at this point in the game when P2 entry means the likes of an Oregon or a Washington or USC or a UCLA or a Texas or an Oklahoma or a UNC or a Florida State or a Clemson. NC State is not in that ballpark. And so they're not getting in. They're not getting in. This is one thing that's going to point to it. It never made sense. I don't care about the politics. You can squawk about the politics all along. Money matters, really. And SEC isn't a charity case. Why in the world would they add either of them if they had to take along NC State? It just makes no sense.
All right, special guest Immaculate, let's get your take. Is it strengthening the Wolfpack backpack, or are we getting slack in the Wolfpack backpack?
I don't know. I was enjoying that though, man. It's been a little while. How you doing, Wild Dude?
What's up? How you doing, Immaculate?
Oh, I'm coming in after this. I'm in so much trouble.
Fired up.
Oh my goodness. As usual, I agree with everything he says. My whole point, I guess I'd bring opposite of that is I don't think it's all nonsense to talk about the politics of the situation and how that might create a finale, a finish to this. That isn't the most logical position that Wadu just wonderfully presented. They're not the same. They're not seen the same. They're not perceived the same. And yet the Board of Governors is presenting kind of like, their chess move in return. Is it enough? I don't know. I'm not there on the ground. I can't say. I do tend to think this new situation, I'm guessing you guys have probably presented the North Carolina, the moves that have happened. And I would say, I don't necessarily think that this means that they're cutting the ties. Now, it could help with that, right? Because if they do go separate ways, say North Carolina to the SEC, North Carolina State to the Big 12 or whatever, they're going to have to play each other because of this. They can't not do it. So it definitely helps North Carolina State in that way. But it also kind of says in an area when we're moving into 9 to 10 games per conference schedule, if you're forced to play each other as out of conference competition, you're having very little maneuvering room after that. And when you look at the other stuff that's passed in terms of having to play some of the other North Carolina schools, if we're talking a 10-game season here in the future, which has not been stated by anyone, but just kind of looks like it might be on the horizon, you have no room at all for outside scheduling. Let's say North Carolina and Virginia don't end up in the same place either. That's a dead rivalry. So I'm not yet ready to say this is a for sure thing in either direction, because in my opinion, there's good arguments in both directions. There's the straight up nuts and bolts analysis that Wildoo brings about the value. There's that, which you really can't say is not true. But then there is the politics that gets involved, and that's the side of realignment that we've seen many times in the past that just can break logic. It can break your logical ending. So I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just think that it's pretty fascinating how it's playing out. And if they're going to this length, it kind of tells me there's a lot of smoke. So maybe we'll find out soon.
Let's get to some hellos real quick.
Yeah, let's get some hellos. Let's do it.
Buckshot Kid is in the house. Good to see you, Buckshot Kid. Glenn Lumen is in the house from the Philippines. Dan Miter's in the house. Good to see you, Dan. Daniel Gygax. Daniel Copcho. We will come back to these comments, guys. I'm just getting hellos out. Don't want anybody to think I'm skipping them. Antoine Codes. Rock Chalk.
Oh, yes. Love
Jamie
that, man.
Thornton, #1 Bengals fan. Clay Johansson, you go ahead and say that. You
Go blue. Go blue. I think he is referring to the Michigan Wolverines. Right? That's right.
Jared Jones, good to see you. Movie Time Blues is in the house. West Virginia Earl with the 2 Black Bears. Conundrum's in the house, another Hawkeye. Shonsky, the #1 Big Ten hater, is here. Mr. Monkey Says is here. W. Jason Spangler's here, and I think Illini Ted, and we will end it with this one here. Marcus Williams in his finely groomed beard has been a member for 3 months. Thank you so much,
Marcus.
Well,
give that man a good sounder. Give him a sounder.
Sometimes there's a delay on the tablet soundboard, but thank you so much for being a member, Marcus Williams. We really appreciate it. For those who don't know, if you want to look at you want to get your own access to the custom emotes for the College Football Mafia channel, you want to view these analytical, in-depth videos that we put out for Wild Ute University, or these fantasy booking alternative timelines we do with Timeline, by all means, become a member of the College Football Mafia. Just go to the little $ at the bottom of the chat window. You can become a member through there. You can gift memberships. You can leave a super chat. We answer all super chats, even the ones that say the GB word. That's one way it'll go through. But yeah. Well, are you guys ready to get some comments?
We can get to some comments, no doubt about it. Hey, but first, Georgia Tech. We got Mr. Georgia Tech. Let him cook. Let him cook.
Like, this is what Moan has left.
Wait, is that
He still
tequila?
has some left. I thought it was gone.
What is that?
No, this is bourbon.
Oh, bourbon. Hmm.
It's a
Let's
Tuesday
start
night. I'm
replacing-
running unclear tonight. So.
Yeah, I'll place that order on Friday.
So let's dive a little bit into the Wolfpack backpack, guys, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I know we've got different views on this amongst the realignment nuts like we are and everything in our community and stuff that we love. There's been a point of discussion for many, many months, right? And there was smoke that, that there was the tethering of the two, the Wolfpack backpack and stuff. The illustration of the show and stuff will show you kind of what that looks like visually, at least to my eyes. But I want to bring up a couple images, okay? Tell me if you think these images fit, all right? This is just an exercise in exploration, okay? So first one, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think? Do those two things look like they fit together?
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah, the colors even look like they fit together, right? Yeah, so I'm saying like
To me, it's like a feeling. Like it just it feels like it. Like I get that it's a high end school. The SEC's not thought of that. Whatever. I can just it's a major brand, and the SEC. Look, love it or hate it, whatever. It's a home of major brands. I think it should be a football brand. I think it should be everything that it can be in the SEC. So I say yes.
Yeah, and I brought this up in a comment, replying to a comment earlier this week. If you look at the SEC's expansion recently, it's been Missouri, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Texas. North Carolina fits that mold. State school, good research dollars, so it's not out of line with what the SEC is doing.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, when I look at this image right here, it does look like it fits. Like, and the colors kind of fit together and stuff, but just like culturally and everything with what the SEC is wanting to become, they want to become more research oriented. They want to get in the state of North Carolina. They want the flagship school in the state. They don't want to double up unless they absolutely have to, i.e., Texas and Texas A&M. There's so many things that fit here, right? Like, and so when I look at these two things, it's just like, yeah, these two things are going to happen here. And so likely, right? And then, okay, the next one. This is the last one. If these two things fit, do you think these two things fit?
I think it could. I think it could. Like if I saw it there, I'd be like, okay. It's not the only place that I think it could fit, but I think right now what we're seeing with the Big 12 is that there is no fit.
It's true.
There's what is it going to be, and we are determining that right now. So whoever ends up being in the Big 12 in a year or 2 years, like whatever the final build is, that's the new Big 12. So when you put that there, and if they go there, then yeah, it fits because they're going to be a defining brand of the Big 12 if that's where they end up.
What do you think, Mon?
It's not the worst fit. But I still believe in Wolfpack backpack.
Arm behind the back, twist a little bit there.
So yeah, so you guys, where's your confidence level, I guess, with Wolfpack backpack? Do you think that, like, if you had to put a percentage on it today versus a month ago?
I was at 100%. I'm still at 85 to 90%. Because there is that, they have put it in there to where it's possible, like, if you do go separately, one, it probably means there's going to be some North Carolina calamity involved. But two, then this whole scheduling situation. And it's like, if you want to go, you're going to be heavily tied in your scheduling because it's not just about the North Carolina State scheduling. Right. It's about Charlotte and who's the other one out west? But there's 2 or 3 other schools that they have to rotate between for scheduling. So it's like maybe they'll have that choice to pay to get out, to do all that. But I still think it's a lot easier for everyone involved if they go with. So I don't know if the money's there or not. That is not my thing. That's yours.
Right.
You figure out. I can't. I'm not even going to try to counter that. I just think that the politics are pushing for it. And if the bean counters figure out a way to do it, then they'll do it just to get it done. Because right now, things seem to be getting held up.
One thing that's been a little tricky here. Okay, so I feel like sometimes in this debate, which is a great debate and everything, that folks feel like the SEC is under an obligation to go into the state of North Carolina and grab a team. Like, in that it's more of like for benevolence reasons rather than strategic like reasons to grow conference and make money. And if it was for benevolent reasons, I certainly would add NC State along with UNC in my view and stuff. But since this is cutthroat college football, rip your throat out, Pac-12 dissolve kind of stuff, I just know from personal experience it's not. And that like strategically and money-wise, the SEC is in 100% better position if it adds UNC by itself without NC State.
Probably.
Would you guys disagree with that? Like, if
No.
SEC could do it, would that be more financially viable to add just one school in that
Perfect
state?
scenario.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
if
that'd
they
be your
controlled
thing.
everything, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
So that's where the thinking is and stuff. Like, why stretch if you're the SEC or the Big Ten and have to feel like you're compelled to double dip when you really don't need to? It's not like the SEC is hurting for money. It's just like a future play and everything. And like, it's kind of like with an investment decision. When you're making a decision with any investment, like, you're going to weigh your options, you're going to weigh the cost of the investment and what it's going to future return and everything. And so with NC State and UNC, the combo again is basically 75 cents on the dollar. Whereas UNC is actually an amplifier, in my point of view, where it's over $1 and you're adding value for everybody. It declines value and dilutes everybody if you add the bunch, if you add the both. And so that's always been the perception. That's why the Wolfpack backpack came about. Just that thinking and everything. I wanted to articulate that too. And just, I guess, last point too, for NC State. So members of College Football Mafia, there was an NC State to Big 12 video that was conducted. And for members only, come check that out. Really still completely relevant in this discussion and everything, but it lays out NC State's viewership, historical viewership, really against Big 12 teams and not against SEC teams. SEC gets a lot more viewership than Big 12. Big 10 gets a lot more viewership than Big 12. We all know that. But I really think that one of the most concerning things about Wolfpack Backpack is viewership. I'm going to pull up a slide from the Wild University presentation that shows NC State compared to Big 12 schools, not SEC schools, just Big 12.
All right.
So we're looking
before you get to that, I got a super chat.
Yeah.
The Pop-Tart Bowl game was really exciting to attend in Orlando between K-State and NC State. Both have a great fan base. North Carolina State would be a perfect fit, and that's from Cleveland Rocks. I'm assuming he means to the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with K-State. But thank you for the super chat, Cleveland Rocks. We appreciate that. Yeah, North Carolina State, I brought it up, I think, in that video that they have one of the best attendance records in FBS as far as packing fans into the stands. So.
And here's the thing is NC State's an absolutely phenomenal brand, but they're more like a Utah level brand. And like, as a Ute fan, I understand kind of the pecking order and stuff about how this realignment game goes. And like, Utah would be an outside candidate for maybe a Big 10. Maybe that never happens, right? So Utah is snug in the Big 12 and wants to grow the conference and itself in the Big 12. And I think I would position NC State in the same exact vein, maybe a notch slightly below Utah. And so if a Utah team can't get into P2, how in the world is NC State going to manage it unless they backdoor political it, right? And I guess, some of the feelings about, like, the passion about NC State Wolfpack that bugs over here on this end is that dynamic too, that you play the political card and just jump in and get basically a Willy Wonka gift certificate when you really didn't warrant it. And so, just being really honest with you guys, that's where that venom's coming from. Because like, hey, my team's performed better than your team, and you want to backdoor in because you're rival. That's bullcrap. Like, that's so. I mean, I know that life's not fair and everything, but that is where this passion's coming from. And like, hey, you ain't getting in if Utah ain't getting in. Like, no way. Like, Oklahoma can get in, Texas can get in, but no, NC State, sorry, you're not getting in. So anyway, let's add a little bit more support for this argument here. So let's look at NC State's historical football viewership, and we all know that 80% of this is all driven by football and football viewership. because that's where the money's coming from the media partners. Well, a large portion of realignment's driven. So taking a look at where NC State stacks up versus Big 12 schools. So this is based on Nelson rated data from 2015 to 2023. And you can see the NC State Wolfpack is actually below median point for the Big 12. We're not even talking the SEC. The SEC gets way bigger viewership numbers than this. And so right here alone, if this is the biggest determinant in realignment, and I've also actually looked at some different information too, in addition to this, that shows like how NC State would have performed over the last year in 2023, where if you were like on an even playing field, even ranking and stuff, and in the same time spot, if you make all conditions the same, how would NC State viewership-wise perform versus any other school? And NC State is an underperformer as of the last year, 2 years, in that vein, and also in just normal viewership. They're below Big 12 median in normal football viewership. And so when you're looking at that, and this is one of the biggest drivers in realignment, it's like, how in the world does this school qualify to get into the huge hurdle of $100 million P2 hurdle when there's so many other schools that would warrant that don't have that opportunity? And then the only argument is that UNC and the politics and state that UNC can lift this brand so much that it clears that hurdle. And based on football viewership for UNC, it's not even close. Football viewership for UNC is almost as poor as NC State. And so you're looking at two laggards below median level football viewership brands right here. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, basketball for UNC only, not NC State, but basketball for UNC only is actually elite. We're talking number one in basketball viewership. That's a major amplifier. Mm-hmm. So you're really investing in a basketball brand and basically making that a basketball viewership. And that's completely fine and stuff if that's where the SEC is going to go. But since basketball is only worth 20 cents on the dollar, how in the world are you going to bring along NC State with that? That's where the thinking is, right, for Wolfpack Backpack.
Can I make a point based off of this right here?
Absolutely.
You remember the Big Eight? Are you familiar? You know,
yeah,
I'm kind of old, so you know. And you remember the situation of who was going there and then who used politics to force their way in? That was a Texas Tech, and the other school was Baylor.
Was it Baylor? Yeah.
And I don't remember fully at the time, but they were not a known power. They just had people in government power in the state, and they got to go along. That was the Southwest Conference. I mean, there was SMUs, there was all kinds of Texas schools there. They got in because of politics. They were not a big brand at all. They probably would have been in this type of a situation. They would have been at the bottom. Things were different at the time, but if we were trying to like find a value, they would have been the bottom of the Big Eight. But look where they are here. Over time, what they've been able to do with those resources, what they've done, what they could become. And I would say maybe is North Carolina State something like that. When you look at the size of the school, the growth that the state's having, where it's projected to be in the future, could that be a long-term investment? And if ESPN needs things to happen now, because the way timing of things are going, and I know it's not fair, but could that overcome all of your analysis, which is on point? And just to kind of say, like, could they build that up the same way as now we're looking at as Baylor has been built up?
Mm-hmm. I think that it could happen, and they could build up to be a bigger brand on the SEC if they perform well. But then the question is, like, why give them that opportunity? Like, what today would warrant that opportunity for NC State when you could plug any team in and you could make that same argument? I mean, you could say UCF could perform that well too if they got in the SEC.
Sure,
they could build the brand too. So
it's the first team that you showed. It's North Carolina. That's what. If they're truly the number one want and desire and everything they could ever dream of in the SEC of having, because they seem to want to build up academically. Maybe they want to build up their own consortium. I don't know. If that's really, truly what they want, and things kind of need to happen pretty quick here with everything that's going on, when you don't put a good crisis to waste, as they say.
Right.
That might overcome all the data that you have against them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't nullify your data or make it not true. And sometimes in realignment, as we've seen in the past, and that's why I brought up Baylor, sometimes the unfair thing happens. I mean, there are some of these other schools that were left behind in the Southwest Conference and had to go do whatever that were probably more deserving at the time. They just didn't have the people and political power to move them. So it's the unfortunate part of this business that might rear up.
So with one consideration too, and valid points, completely valid points, I think that the realignment game has changed given like the financials of this. So there's one thing to say that Virginia Tech, piggybacked off Virginia to get into the ACC from the Big East, right? But if you look at like the television contracts at the time and the dollars at the time for athletic departments, we're at 10 times X what those were. It is absolutely out of control and everything. And so back then, it was a lot easier to clear a couple $1 million hurdle for a school like Virginia Tech than a $60 million hurdle. Like that's basically what NC State's looking at right now. If NC State got a valuation, if you plugged a valuation about how much they're worth in media rights, they're probably, anywhere from 28 to 42 million, right in that range. In that range, maybe in the low 30s, probably same level as a Big 12, maybe a little bit less. I don't know. But like you're looking at the SEC's paying on 90 million in media rights, and with including CFP monies and stuff, like 70 million in media rights. And so it's such a big gap to make. And the only argument you can really make is that UNC is the value add, and they bring so much value, they basically qualify for 2 teams entry. And like, I'm just not convinced of that. UNC is a great school, academics, elite basketball and everything. The football, they can't sell out their football stadium. Their viewership for football is below at median. Like, and so really what from a media company's point of view, why in the world would you shell out the cash for those two? I'm not even sure that UNC basically qualifies for a complete, like 100% share in the SEC based on its performance on the viewership side. Like basketball viewership's great and everything, but it's all driven by football viewership. And so there's no way you could actually, just looking at UNC alone, you couldn't make the argument that they warrant an SEC entry based on its football viewership. There's 0% chance. And so what ancillary factor would warrant both of them getting into the SEC? Maybe there's something there that's just a complete black swan that we don't know, that's in some type of black box algorithm for the SEC that makes sense to them. But if I'm a business person, I would never make the investment for NC State and UNC. No way. And I would make it for UNC, probably at a full share and stuff strategically, but I just think that'd be a very poor investment.
I think, and that's what's going to come down to. I think it's going to come down to ESPN and how much. I don't know their valuations. They've got to figure out if they're going to do the ACC deal going forward, if they're going to opt in. Do they want, if this is going to happen eventually, that they might decide that they need to push it to happen now, so that way they can get their lower valuation, which would be the more precise valuation of the ACC. You could do that so much better than I can, and that's kind of what I always used to count on you for. And that's all I'd say is, like, if it happens, it's because of ESPN. It's not SEC. In fact, the SEC is going to be like, well, we want this for it, and we want that for it, and we want this for it. We want our 9-game conference season that you haven't been willing to pay us for, and we want top dollar for it. Maybe we want that 10th. We want this. We want these showcases. I mean, yeah, the SEC is going to rake ESPN over the coals for that. And ESPN just has to figure out, like, we're in this conundrum. Shout out to it in the chat. With the ACC and figuring out what they're going to do with it going forward. And I don't know what costs and losses are worth it. They have the analysts and everyone who's looking at that long term and trying to figure out. I'm just saying, if there's any reason why it goes through, it's because ESPN determined that the loss you're talking about was worth it, as almost like an investment towards whatever they're trying to go towards. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because I can't refute anything you're saying. All because trying to bring this other end of maybe the way things play out. But yeah, I mean, if the SEC could do what they want, it would just be UNC.
What do you think about this, Bone?
Look, I think you have to look at this as an investment. Like you said, I think you have to invest in your conference long term. If adding North Carolina State at a partial share gets you into North Carolina and ensures you lock up UNC and UVA, I think you do it.
You know what? That's a great point. Okay, so partial shares. So like we've thrown out there in the past that partial share, like in a permanent partial share, not just for one cycle of a media contract. Does NC State get really technical with this thing and say, hey, we want to come along at all costs. We are willing to take a permanent reduction share forever.
I don't think
like
so.
Seriously.
I don't think you can do that in what's coming at us with all these costs, with 22 million that they're going to be spending on athletes, with so much coming at us. I don't think that you can ask a school to come or expect them to even be competitive. And as a conference, you want them to be competitive. The SEC has something in their contract that does not allow for partial payouts, and it's probably for this reason, because they don't want anyone to come in there and just not be able to compete just because they're not having the same amount of money come in. So no, if there's some type of situation like that, I don't know how you do that. UNC might have to take some of the cut too. Like if it was like a full cut for UNC and a half for NC State, they might do 3/4 for each.
They might,
because the board of governors, they might force that. Like they're playing a part in this, and I think most people don't want to look at or don't understand. But it's basically, and this isn't your realm here, I compare it to a hostile takeover. What happened in that state with the board of governors, what they did to UNC. I mean, if you're the president chancellor of UNC, you're not going to Michigan State unless it's a parachute job. Great call. I'm not nailing Michigan State to the wall when I say this. It's not a move upwards. That's a save me. I've done a lot of work to try to get North Carolina to the Big Ten. The gig is up here, and they're kicking me the ass out. Get me a job over there, Delaney, because Delaney was a go-between between the two, and they kicked him out. He's no longer even advising North Carolina anymore. So, they have one place to go for all of them. That's the SEC, and I don't think that they could even split them anymore. So I don't know. We'll see, but they may have to split that cost because they're controlled now. They're controlled by the board of governors.
Hey, Mon, do you mind putting a poll question up? I'm really curious what the community thinks about the Wolfpack backpack, given like the most recent information. Like I know you guys are leaning towards the backpack sticking, right? Whereas some others think it's going to be severing, i.e. this guy right here. I'm curious what the community thinks. We've got a smart community. And really, where's people, where's your head at? Where's your head at with this thing? And in the meantime, Georgia Tech is Immaculate's in the house. It's the first time I've done a show with you, man, in weeks. I missed you, Immaculate.
I was just like, oh, God, it's been so much. Had to take a little breather, a little break. How you guys been doing, though, man? Seems like numbers have been good. Things have been good for you guys.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Trucking along.
Absolutely. Trucking along. Yeah, let's get to some comments about this, too.
Yep, and we got that poll running, so please remind me, because sometimes I forget till the end of the show.
Yeah, I'll remind you on this one.
And I look over and I say, oh, we did a poll. Movie Time Blues. I still want to ask Wild Youth if packaging UNC and Duke can work for the SEC.
Oh, my gosh.
Looks like Chad is agreeing with you massively.
Okay, so Movie Time Blues. That's been stuck in my head for like 3 or 4 days. Like Duke. Okay, so Duke. There's such a question mark. The SEC might want Duke. I think Duke brings a lot more to the table than NC State with UNC because you package that rivalry. We know that television partners love rivalries and that the SEC wants rivalries too.
But that's
Duke
a basketball
UNC.
rivalry, right?
Exactly. Basketball rivalry. So you're going all into basketball and having the premier basketball brands and the premier number one, no doubt, basketball rivalry. If you get Duke and UNC, but Duke is just like this enigma. Duke is, in my view, Duke is the enigma, like the mystery of all realignment. Like, you can make an argument about Duke going to the SEC and pairing with UNC. You can make an argument about Duke going into the Big Ten because of its academics, and if the Big Ten misses on UNC, which we think is going to happen, and if the Big Ten wants in North Carolina, then you go with Duke. You can make an argument that Duke goes over to the Big 12 despite it not being a great cultural fit. Or so you can make an argument that Duke just sticks behind in the remnant of the ACC and becomes an academic conference, like Immaculate suggested many times. Like, what the heck do you do with Duke? Duke's that one school that it just, what do you do? I don't know. I've been racking my brain around Duke.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is no answer at this point in time other than I think they might have options. I'm not sure if the rivalry that you bring up with North Carolina is actually worth it. I know it's got all the talk in the world. It's just, okay, we're talking about a rivalry, and these are by your numbers, in the 20%, not in the 80%. Like, right. Even if it's the top rivalry in the whole country, it's in the 20%. I mean, North Carolina State, North Carolina for football, I mean, that's going to be a rivalry. Whether it is now or not, if they were together in that conference, ESPN and the SEC would schedule it as a rivalry. Mm-hmm. I don't know the value of it. So that's why it's really hard to measure Duke because they're just now starting to come into football and they just lost their head coach. So we don't know. I mean, they lost their quarterback. They lost their head coach. Quarterback's going to Notre Dame. Head coach went to Texas A&M. It's one of those, was it a flash in the pan? Is it going right back to its natural state? They certainly haven't spent the money on their stadium as others are that would show you like, hey, we're serious about this. To me, it's a big question mark. And when you have Stanford and Notre Dame now with them in the ACC, like I it's one of those intuitive things that maybe it's just way off and there's nothing to it. But to me, Duke and Stanford are probably like two long lost brothers that didn't, I mean, they knew each other existed, but they just never met maybe. And now they've finally met and they come together and you're like, and they come together and you're telling me that they want to split up. I know it's not the long-term rivalry in North Carolina, but that's like their sibling. I have, if they can make anything of the ACC, if they still can, if that dies, no, but if they can, I have to feel like Duke might be staying there. It's just, I mean, I think that's what Stanford came over there to do.
Duke, here, go ahead, Moan, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, we hit 125 viewers. We're now at 131, so we gifted 5 memberships to the community. Those went out to Laura Wellborn, Jeff Woodworth, Larry the GM, Tuffy Duffy, Christopher Podajitsky. Apologize if I messed that name up.
Yeah.
Welcome to the family, guys. If you feel like paying that forward, you can also gift a membership yourself. But after the show tonight, I strongly suggest these are all little snippets from Wild Ute University. So head over to the member section and watch those Wild Ute University shorts. I think you will be very enlightened once you do that.
You might agree, you might disagree. Either way is fine. Just providing the data. The data doesn't tell all the story. We know that. We're not saying the data tells everything. You need to apply your brain to it and like your critical thinking, but it is just part of the story, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing here. And like Duke, let's keep. Okay, guys, Duke to the Big Ten. Okay.
Oh, I got a
whopper for you there. Okay, hear me out. Mm-hmm. So Duke to the Big Ten. What if the Big Ten finds itself in a situation where it adds Florida State and Clemson? Okay. And then the school that will next emerge, in my point of view, is Miami. Miami's been, on platforms, off platforms. That right now, everyone seems to have soured on Miami. I think the Big Ten is going to be hot after Miami still. I think Miami's going to end up in the Big Ten. I think that's going to be the third school that the Big Ten adds. And the last school, they're going to go for 4 this round of realignment, is, of course, going to be Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame decides that, hey, it's time to jump over to the Big Ten because the ACC has ruptured here and we don't have a place, we're not going to move over to the Big 12 for all the other sports, then of course you add Notre Dame. That's such a no-brainer. There's a Wild University video about the Big Ten's burning desire, and that is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's the easiest decision ever. It's a clear ad. But if Notre Dame turns the Big Ten down, what does the Big Ten do? The Big Ten, why wouldn't the Big Ten want to get in the state of North Carolina? I mean, if everybody wants to be in that state, why would you just give it up to the SEC? Duke in itself does a lot of things for the Big Ten, albeit not at a full share, 50% share, like Oregon and Washington. But its basketball brand is a clear nice thing. Its football brand is a good way to lose games. We've talked before, you need those laggards in their conference and everything. But the thing is that it brings most of it is on the research side, guys. Duke is an absolute research powerhouse. And like you said, immaculate Duke and Stanford, big time. So I'm just surprised that Duke has never even really came up for the Big Ten, because it just seems like when you're looking at everything that the Big Ten might want, again, it's not the flagship. That's UNC in the state. But if that state's so dang valuable, you'd even consider adding NC State and UNC, then why not go after Duke, the research power, bring basketball brand over to the Big Ten, and let the football team eat losses?
Well, I've got a whopper to return on that. I don't know if Moen, you want to jump in first.
I would say, mine will be real quick here, Immaculate.
Yeah,
I would say that this might be a quid pro quo. Maybe they stay out of North Carolina and the SEC doesn't upset the apple cart on Clemson and Florida State.
Advisory committee work. I don't know. You might be right. That's the Moen mind for you. You could be right on that. I got a doozy, and I don't think I've shared this on the show. I think I came up with this since I kind of took my break. So if the whole ACC Ivy private conference thing falls through, which is possible, that's a big pill to swallow for them. They may not decide to do it. If it falls apart, I think there might be a plan for Stanford, Notre Dame, Duke, and California to all approach the Big Ten together and say, you take one, you take them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Stanford, they've brought California along with them wherever. Like I said, both Duke and Stanford are in the IPLC, the Ivy Plus Libraries Consortium, together. The only other non-Ivy schools in that are MIT, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Chicago. It's the elite of the elite. But if they fully join the Big Ten, they probably have to leave that. And if you have Stanford and Duke, and if they're gonna make that kind of an investment, like we're leaving this to join your consortium, I think you can probably make a lot of demands, because the wild card involved with that is the other school that's also in the IPLC that might see, oh, you now have Stanford in your group. These are the two big medical research schools in the entire country, Johns Hopkins and Stanford. So Stanford and Duke join. I could see Johns Hopkins leaving the IPLC and finally joining the BTAA, which if you give them that option, we're talking about a school that does like 3.4 billion in research. The next one down is like 1.9. It's that much higher than everybody else. If you give them a shot at that in the Big Ten, I don't care what you think about California or any of the rest of that grouping, they're going to take it. They're going to take it in a heartbeat. But I think it takes something like that. I don't think it's just going to be Notre Dame and Stanford coming over, or it's probably going to be Florida State and one more. That's why the Clemson thing's kind of thrown me off. Like, it could be it, but it was always kind of assumed it was Miami that would go with that whole cluster, because that would give you Notre Dame, Stanford, Duke, Miami, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, and you have yourself a pretty large little block of private schools now in the Big Ten that can maybe help get rules that they'll need in the future as these conferences create their own rules. So that's my thing on them. If their big move, that whatever they're working on doesn't fly, that they will look over to the Big Ten as a full group. So that's what I say. I think Duke's actually got options, and The SEC might want them. ESPN might want them there. I just don't think that they're going to be pulling any triggers right now. I think that they're like I said, I think they're all watching the NLRB cases to see what comes of it.
One last thing on Duke, okay? I'm going to share a screen here, Moan. Okay. Here we go. All right, here we go. So we've seen this before. This is the research spending, right? This is the R&D expenditures for research. So anyone can access this. This is through the National Science Foundation website and everything. You can Google search it, rankings by total R&D expenditures, but it's pretty telling on like the Big Ten's wish list and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can see on this, like you mentioned, Immaculate, number freaking one is John Hopkins.
And there's no one even close to it.
Yeah, there's no one even close to it. Like they're doing $3.4 billion in R&D
over a couple
research.
years. Look at their growth. Look at their growth scale.
Yeah,
That's $500,000 in just a couple of years for $500 million. I mean, no one else is doing that kind of growth. And number two is California.
it's absolutely wild. So you're looking down the list and stuff. So yeah, so you're looking at California, San Francisco, Penn, Michigan.
I don't see Berkeley around here. Are they saying San Francisco is Berkeley?
So this would be a different campus in like the California system.
No, that would be Berkeley.
That's Berkeley.
This is Berkeley.
Yeah,
It's
I can't
Berkeley.
find Berkeley on the list anywhere. I know the list you're using, so I think that's Berkeley.
So we got Berkeley here. We've got Penn. We got Michigan. We've got Washington. We've got UCLA. You see a trend yet?
Mm-hmm.
We got San Diego. We've got Wisconsin.
Duke.
Ohio
State.
Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it's all. I mean, they would be the research powerhouse of the world if they got that whole move to work. And I know no one's talking about it, so maybe it seems far fetched. But when you bring out this, because I look at this chart, the exact same one you're looking at, and you put those numbers together, it's mind blowing. And I know sports fans are like, well, what does that matter? Just look at the numbers. That's why.
Conundrum
President's pick. Yeah, go ahead.
corrects us. UC San Francisco is the medical school. So that is not Berkeley. We were incorrect. Thank you.
Okay, so is Berkeley not even on this list then?
Yeah, Berkeley's probably somewhere buried in this list. I mean, sometimes there's some idiosyncrasy.
I thought that they were like a pretty large.
There's Berkeley, 31.
Oh, there it is.
31.
Yep. Well, yeah, if you're not including the medical school in there, that's probably what you're seeing.
But if you have two California schools out of the entire university system, you've probably got, you can get into all of that research.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
terms of research sharing, you probably have access. So it's the two schools. And I think they consider Berkeley to be the flagship.
They do. It was the original.
Yeah. So it's, if they were to do that, that would pretty much mean access to the entire California university research system, which is considerable.
Just looking at NC State's actually performing really well, 55th on this list. So we know the SEC is interested in research universities too. NC State's a dang good school, guys.
Virginia Tech is right above them. That's Polytechnic Institute.
Yep, Virginia Tech. So they're right there. Hey, the Iowa Hawkeyes beat them both though. All right, we're gonna stop sharing research data.
Go ahead and post that link in chat if you would. You
got it.
We're requesting that link. So we'll let you guys do your own research on the research. Let's get to some more comments here. Daniel Kopcha, the Cyhawk was what I was thinking of for an annual non-conference rivalry game, but you also have those 4 ACC SEC matchups during rivalry week. Kentucky, Louisville, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Florida, and South Carolina, Clemson.
Yeah, and that's largely, I think, probably due to ESPN, if I had to guess. The Cyhawk, that's just history. We have that at the beginning of the season. It's kind of the opener to get everyone all ramped up. I do believe it would be worth a lot more and be even bigger if it was actually in conference. But it is what it is. It's still pretty valuable. And if, like we're saying, North Carolina and North Carolina State, if they were to play out of conference, it would still be a big game. It just wouldn't have as much meaning.
Okay, the poll ended. 65% think it severs, 34% think it holds, 1% abstaining.
So there you go, guys. The chat The community thinks that there is the start of the painful severing of UNC and NC State.
Yeah, their numbers
Painful.
don't lie. That's where the people are leaning.
And believe me, it is a painful thing, guys. That's a little bit of a hyperbole there, but hey, like it sucks. You know, if that happens and stuff, NC State, we will welcome you with open arms in the Big 12. That will be your landing spot, and you'll be a perfect fit. So, you are wanted and desired.
Antoine Codes, is North Carolina State closer to being in the Big 12? Seems like that backpack may be getting a little bit loose. We kind of already covered that.
Answered it, yeah.
And you guys answered it too. Dan Miter, I agree with you. I'm thinking this is the first step in separating the schools. Why else would you need this legislation?
Yeah, why do you guys think that, though? That is a good question. I'm curious, like, on the counterpoints to that.
I think what you're saying and what Dan's saying and what a lot of people are saying is, yeah, on the surface, it's definitely there to protect in case they get split up. I don't know what that would take. I mean, you know, maybe it's a Calamoni type situation or whatever to make it happen, then maybe it happens. But on the other end of things, if it's also saying that if you do go and stay in the same conference, you don't have to worry about this on your out of conference schedule. You'll have more freedom in the future if you stay together. That's kind of the backhanded, you know, this is what we're saying, but this is also what we mean. And so, you know, the obvious is if they split apart, they have to play. But then the inferred is if you stay together, you have one more open spot on your out of conference scheduling to work out on your own. Say if North Carolina and Virginia get split up, they may want to keep doing that. But if all of their OSC games are having to be done against University of North Carolina University system schools, too bad. You know, I mean, it's a real thing. So that's my thought on that is, you know, there's the obvious and then there's the inferred.
I agree 100%. Daniel Kopcha again. If Big goes to 20 and SEC gets UNC UVA and wants to match the Big, who would join the SEC at 19 and 20, guys?
I think KU. I think we're all in agreement that KU would be a target. That would be, there's smoke around that too. You know, Peek Around the Corner has mentioned that too, that it would be in the SEC's target list, you know, not in first or second, but maybe in that 20 spot. And that certainly makes sense. As much as I dislike saying that as a Big 12 fan, I think KU does make sense in a lot of ways for SEC because it's a natural rival for Missouri. You're adding a new state to the footprint, a contiguous state, and also the KU brand, and also KU is a research institution, an AAU member. So you're getting a lot of different value adds there. It's checking a lot of the boxes. And so I think a KU as a 50% member would be an SEC ad for either the 19 or 20 spot.
Yeah, let's just clarify here. Peek Around the Corner had it, but the first person who had it and was shouting it from the mountaintops was Jamie Thornton in the chat.
It's true. That is a fact.
From Jamie too.
I know, because it was in my DMs all the time too.
So Jamie, kudos to you. Absolutely.
I don't have a let her cook, so you'll just have to deal with the let him cook because you did cook on that one. Yeah, maybe not. We'll see.
But the question is, who else, right?
Are we saying? Are we for this scenario? Are we saying Clemson, or do I have the opportunity to say that it might be somebody else?
You can say whoever you want.
Because so Big goes to 20. We're saying Florida State seems to be, as he says, the chalk. Could be Clemson. If it's Clemson, I think it's part of a bigger move. Because to me, that's if you were to tell me Florida State and Clemson is part of a 4-team move, I'd be like, oh, okay. All right. Now I'm looking at like, you know, a GT to Miami maybe as the other two. That's fine. And then you say, but we have to do those two first in order to break the ACC so that the rest get out cheaper, because that's another thing to talk about. We might have to talk about that a little bit. That's the wording of the exit fee in the ACC is about operating costs. So we'll go into that later. But if it's those two, UNC, UVA, who else? I think you get at this point in time, you have to say, maybe they just take North Carolina State. because it just makes you get through this. It's that headache's gone. It's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but for just picking someone anyways, you might as well pick the one that, you know. So I would say North Carolina State, UVA, and probably Kansas. And I've pushed back on her for Virginia versus Virginia Tech, largely somewhat in fun, but largely just because I think that there's more value there for the SEC than the Virginia. But I really want to know if they're trying to push their consortium. But I would say probably Kansas, those two, and then North Carolina State.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
That's my lineup. It's North Carolina State, UVA, Kansas.
So that's your quartet. That's the quartet right there. That's okay. Okay, that bridges that gap right there and gets you the fourth team. The fourth team is confusing. I will give you guys that.
If you could find me a lot better one than North Carolina State, I'm cool. I mean, I would, you know, I kind of thought Clemson was, especially when she tried to go and work out divisions recently, kind of showed that to Jamie. He's like, look how hard it's going to get. When you try to figure out divisions in the future, you may not believe that they happen. I do. So I use that as part of my figuring of where people go, because you're going to have to figure out geographic divisions. And with Clemson's value and its location, it really helps, because that southeast little corridor right there is tough. It's tough to figure out divisions, especially when you probably got to tell North Carolina, yeah, you're going to have your own division. So, but just with that alone, I would go with the four that we said. That's my hard part. Is like, I think SEC is really not going to want to let Clemson go for money reasons, but also for division reasons later.
That's why, to me, 18 and standing pat at 18 and not going after KU would make sense too. Like, KU is a nice value add, but like, it's not necessary for SEC. And so stopping at 18 with UNC and Virginia probably gets you everything you need. And that's got to be in the consideration too, without going to a full 20 team conference. But really, the 20th team, like, it's hard to find, right? Like, you're looking for contiguous states. Who else is there that you're connected to? Like, it ain't going to be the Colorado Buffaloes, right? If you're at KU, that's not going to be an ad. You're in Oklahoma, you're in Texas, you're in everywhere in the South, right? And like, you're going up. Like,
might get crazy, go KU in Nebraska.
Could the SEC pull Nebraska from the Big Ten?
Probably not.
I mean, that's a weird fit, though. I mean, that's a really weird fit.
Kind of doing it just to stir the pot a little bit, but you know, you say contiguous, so I'm like,
right, like, and you're looking for contiguous ads. Like, there's just not too many other big brands that are left in a neighboring state that aren't in the P2, right? That's why KU makes so much sense. And that would be an argument for NC State, but I would, again, counter that saying at Duke. Duke brings more to the table to the SEC than NC State with UNC.
All right, now let's get to some serious stuff here, guys. Mariam Mocha wants to know, do you like cheeseburgers? I have to know, since Greg at Peek Around the Corner don't like cheese on his meat.
I freaking love cheeseburgers, man. All cheeseburgers. More cheese, the better. Juicy Lucy's are a little bit weird, though. That's where the cheese is in the middle of the patty. When you bite into it, if it's too hot, it can burn your face. So be careful with the Juicy Lucy. But cheeseburgers are delicious. I mean, cheeseburgers are American. So, yeah, cheese on meat. Absolutely.
I had a cheeseburger today from Culver's. You know, the one that really gets Greg worked up if you talk about it. Straight out of Wisconsin. And the cheese was not good on it. And it left me thinking at the time, I'm like, damn it, is Greg right? But I was like, no, it's just this one. This is garbage cheese.
I can't eat red meat anymore, but when I could eat red meat, Baconators from Wendy's all day.
Oh, yeah.
They're not quite what they used to be, so you're not missing out, brother. But yeah, I hear you.
They were great. Extra bacon on there too, please. And a big cherry Coke. Oh, they used to make the Coke. They'd put cherry grenadine in it and then pour the Coke in. It was awesome.
Nice. Now they just have a machine that does that for you.
Yeah.
So get this, guys. In Salt Lake, went to McDonald's the other day, got a cheeseburger, and basically looked like a cracker, and it was $1.79. Isn't that crazy? Big cracker.
I love this name, Troll Grinding Cheek Clapper. I don't know if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten if it gets a CFP spot. Trojans, USC won't end rivalry even with 10 big games. Of big top 10 SEC, USC plays 6-24 and 25. 10th game, Purdue, Illinois, Hoosiers.
God, it's a really good question. There's a lot to it. Another one that I'm going to have to throw on the list that people might not think about just because I like to do that is Northwestern. And that's because they're building the brand new stadium in Chicago, and that's the city that Notre Dame likes to say is theirs. So as much as Purdue, history, Hoosiers, same state, Illini, I don't know why. I would say Northwestern in that new stadium in Chicago is probably where Notre Dame would want to be. Just a guess.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Troll Grinding Cheap Clapper. Thank you for giving us all a big laugh here. We'll let him
let him
cook. Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Thank you so much for that super chat, brother. Much appreciated. Give us
awesome.
all a kick with that name.
Couldn't believe when I saw it pop on the screen. I'm like, oh.
Right. W. Jason Spangler says a lot of talk going around about how a Big 12 team is poised to take the national championship this year. Just saying.
Arizona State, duh.
Hey, Moan, that's a perfect parlay. Pull up a tweet in the chat over here if you wouldn't mind. That is a Brett McMurphy tweet. I can pull it up too. It's about national championship odds, and this is a perfect parlay into that. I want to get your guys' take, just like gut reaction take on who's too high or too low. Hold up just 1 sec.
I got it here. All right. Add the stage. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Well, I can't really zoom in very great on that, but UGA is 3-1, Ohio State 4-1, Texas is 7-1, Oregon is 8.5-1.
That's a wild.
That's a weird number. Yeah. Bama's 13-1, Ole Miss is 15-1, LSU 17-1, FSU, Notre Dame, and Penn State are 25-1. Clemson, Miami, Michigan are 40-1. Well, I'm looking for a Big 12 team here. A&M, Tennessee, 50-1.
Utah,
60-1.
60-1. You got to hit that, guys. 60-1. This team's good. Real good.
Kansas State, 75-1.
Yep, then you got
Kansas, they've got Kansas at 125-1. Ooh, that might be a good value bet right there. Let's see what other Big 12 teams. They got Colorado, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, 200-1. Iowa's at 300-1. Now, see, that might be good money there if they can just get an offense.
That's why, because we don't know. It's a big, huge question mark right now. It's a pretty much a brand new offense. So a lot of their opponents that they've played regularly aren't going to know what they're doing until tape starts to come in. So we'll see how that goes. But their defense is basically the entire defense came back except for their, all-star cornerback that left. But I'm not calling for them to win it, so that I wouldn't make that bet. To me, I was kind of found it interesting that Ohio State wasn't actually top.
I understand, new quarterback, new OC.
Yeah, I know, but man, you got the best two running backs in the country. You've got the best coordinator for running games in the country. You've got last year the example of what a two running back offense can do that didn't have as much talent as you have. And in the same conference, well, of course, you got some new teams coming in, but to me, it's Ohio State at the top and then Georgia. But that's, not a big deal.
I'm fine not being number one.
That's who I'd bet on, though. That's what I'm saying. I'd bet on Ohio State.
Shocking right here, guys. 200-1, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. What slander, disrespect.
It's pretty bad.
Program gets disrespected all the time.
They're going to be running over everybody. Like, you better watch out because they got their entire offensive line coming back. They got all the they're going to. Let me tell you, as an Iowa guy, I'm telling you, they're coming for you. They are going to play Utah ball. Like Utah ball is going to be played in Oklahoma State, where usually it's kind of slinging and throwing it around and being pretty exciting. They're just going to beat up people this year.
I cannot believe that Colorado has the same odds as Oklahoma State to win the national championship, according to Action Sports Network. That is unreal right there. Oklahoma State.
They're playing better.
Seriously.
You know, some people bet with their emotions and it's with what they know and what they hear. So it's there to grab those bettors.
That's the biggest value I see on that whole list and everything. And of course, the Utes at 60-1. Y'all need to take that for sure. You got to take that, hit that, make you some money right there. Cam Rising, national champion. Oh, watch out.
It'd be a good story. If you can hang in there all season long, it'd be a great story.
National champion as a 7th-year senior.
Yeah.
You might be an 8-year senior after
A new age of
with the COVID protocols, yeah. Daniel Gygax, I don't see it as UNC NCSU protection of their rivalry. It's all to have Appy State play UNC and North Carolina State. That would terrify me.
That's one of them. They did. There was 2 parts though.
Yeah.
There is one that protects UNC, NCSU, and then on top of that, any school that's over 30,000 has to play 1 game every year against a school that's below it. Which was then funny. It came out that one of the schools that they consider to be below it is actually now above it, Charlotte. And so then like, oh, we're going to have to rewrite it, but this is what we meant. This is all that matters. Like it was kind of messy, but that's the thing is that they have to play each other and then they have to play one of the other 3 schools every year. So that'll rotate around.
Rock Chalk, if any ACC school is Utah, it's definitely Pitt. North Carolina State fans are mostly chill.
A lot of connections between Utah and Pitt.
Yeah, I agree.
Only problem is Pitt doesn't have fans.
And Utah doesn't have national championships. So.
Oh, please, one.
Or Heisman Trophy winners.
What about 2008? 2008? The Hester and Anderson national champion.
Oh, come on. Let's be realistic.
That's a computer poll right there. Hey.
Jamie Thornton, Georgia Tech to the SEC.
Probably not. Hey, if you want them, I mean, they'd probably come.
You could have it.
You can have it all.
Got another super chat from the troll grinding clapper. I hope Stanford joins the Big for no other reason than 3 of the 4 California Pac teams in Big, with Cal in a worse position than Oregon State, Washington State after the dust settles.
Man, I mean, I was kind of saying that Cal would go with them, but
he's saying no. He's saying no. Don't let Cal
do you think Stanford's dragging them across the country and then leaving them as the only California school in the ACC? Maybe they would, but kind of tend to think that they'd probably go to bat for Cal. We'll see. But that's like, go ahead.
How bad does Cal and Stanford want to get out of the ACC right now, today? Like, they've got to be wanting to get out of this conference, like, worse than anybody. They're like, oh, my gosh, FSU and Clemson are leaving. UNC wants out. What in the world are we doing? We're flying across country for games.
Depends on what the hidden plans are going. I mean, like I said, I can't really say on that for sure until we see the NLRB case findings. And after looking at some of those in the past, sometimes those take about 6 months to come out. God. So we may not know that for a little while. Like I said, I think they came over there with a plan. If they didn't have a plan, I think they would have accepted what the Big Ten wanted. So I do think they have a plan. You know, whether or not my thoughts on that plan are right or wrong, can't guarantee. But I'd say them and Notre Dame and their crew going to the Big Ten, if we ever see some real smoke about that, then it probably means the whole private conference thing fell through.
Yeah, here's my problem with it. You really can't rhyme California with backpack. Or anything, really. I can't think of anything that rhymes with California. So we need to come up with something. Come up with something in chat, guys, with the Cal backpack. I see that.
How about Calicaria?
So we've had
Yeah,
Calamoni, yeah, Cal
Calcario.
The Calicaria.
Yeah,
Instead of California, it's Calicaria.
yeah.
Carry you across the finish line there, because that's really, I mean, otherwise, look, California is just going to have to drop sports.
Well,
The Big 12 is not inviting California. They're going to look at that and go, man,
no way.
they already don't play football out there. I mean,
Yeah,
so.
so like if they don't get in with Stanford, they're I mean, that's what happens. Is the Cal athletic department basically? I don't know where they go. I don't know what they do. They go wherever the other California university schools are in Division II or FCS or wherever they're at.
But bring along Bears. The Big Lubbock says the SEC has approved a new logo. I'd like to see that.
I think that's the one with like all the versions of brown
with
old
the
school pennants.
Yeah, the pennants.
I don't like that logo.
I liked it because it
Old
looked old school, it looked aged, but then I was like, but it's not. So don't try and fool me.
W. Jason Spangler says leaving the ACC will be the biggest regret these universities ever have. Mark my words.
Really? Throwing it down right there. Please elaborate a little bit more, Jason. Very intrigued.
They're going to get smoked. That's what I think he thinks.
Cleveland Rocks. Good evening, gentlemen. Can't wait for college football to finally begin. You and me both, brother. I've been watching highlights the last week. Biggest hits in college football history. Best ejections in college football history. You name it. And of course, Ohio State blowing an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter to Georgia. For some reason on those highlight clips. Jamie Thornton, W. Jason Spangler. I would love to see that KU Missouri rivalry back as a conference game. Yeah, that's a damn good rivalry right there. There's some real hate there. You like that? Shonsky, the number one Big Ten hater. The SEC doesn't need to expand. They already have all the brands that matter. I hate to say it, but true. The Big Ten will add every team available trying to get their respect.
Oh, I miss Shonsky. Missed having that edge at the Big Ten. I mean, it's good to see Shonsky. I mean, to some degree, there's some truth to that. I mean, they're clearly adding with the idea of improving football and saying to the rest of the schools that have just been loafing it, you're not going to be on TV much at all if you don't actually start to spend. But in terms of the SEC not wanting to grow, who doesn't want to grow if it means you're actually growing? Like growth, real, like the type of growth you talk about. While they're, and I think that's what matters in this. Like they're not growing to grow, just to grow, but they are growing for growth. And to think that they don't want in North Carolina or Virginia, I mean, we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think that they don't want a particular footprint. Of course they do. So they just have to figure out how to make it work financially with ESPN and all the bells and whistles.
We got some options here for names. The Bear Ballast from Sergeant Pickles.
Okay.
Or the Bear Burden.
The Bear Burden's great.
Rock and Rant might have the winner, though. This is easy, my cow.
Does that have the proper amount of like just disgust involved when you say that, or is it just a little?
There's no disgust. It's perfect. My cow pal.
It sounds like an old '80s, like children's toy.
Yeah, it's a gal pal.
That's
you have a gal pal.
Good.
Now you have a cow pal.
The cow pal. Love it.
Got another super chat here from troll grinding cheek clapper. USC rookies with Stanford's was longer than its rivalry with Notre Dame and UCLA. Cal and UCLA were big rivals. I can see Stanford dropping Cal for Notre Dame. He's saying no cow pal.
I mean, it's possible. I'm certainly not going to say it's not possible. And maybe the Big Ten would be like, that's too many. And then Stanford's like, well, peace, Cal. deuces. We're out of here.
Yeah,
we need
trust
to
me, when
save
the-
ourselves. We're a private school. We're not. A
When the
California
boat's sinking and there's one spot left on that lifeboat,
I mean, it's possible.
you really figure out who your friends are. If you're pushing
Definitely.
them over to get that seat.
I do think that Cal would be part of the initial ask. So it'd be
Yeah, let me give him a little sounder here. That was legitness.
That was legitness. Yeah, it was.
I need to get a golden ticket sounder on here. I've got a golden ticket.
That's
That way
right.
when North Carolina State gets in there, but I got a golden ticket. Jason Spangler says KU is going to the SEC. I hate it, but I called it 2 years ago the moment University of Texas and Oklahoma announced.
That was a good call, it looks like, Jason. So kudos. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah. But we still have, it still has to be done yet. Still work to be done, guys. The most important thing the Big 12 can do is win their first round college football playoff game. That'll get some respect. You're
100%.
absolutely right.
Big 12
Who's that
needs
gonna
to
be?
win a playoff game.
Who's going to be there?
Utes. It's going to be the Utes.
Who else?
Who else is going to be there?
Oklahoma State could be.
Oklahoma State or KU, K-State. Those are the four.
I'm thinking.
I like
I'm
those
thinking
four.
Utah and Oklahoma State. It might just be two.
I think Kansas is my sneaky pick.
3. Go with Kansas. I think
Jason,
Oklahoma State. Sorry, I was just going to say. I think Oklahoma State probably has the best chance to make it through there just because of their way to control the ball. But maybe Utah will be
Maybe.
there as well. But that's where I'm kind of.
that quarterback from Kansas, though, he's special.
Yeah, if he
He
stays
could have a Heisman
healthy
season.
and he actually wants to play.
Well,
He's been a bit problematic, to say the least.
funny thing about that chart, which is the chart right here, the schools at the bottom are the 2 highest revenue generating schools on that list. So Kansas and Arizona generate more revenue than all these other schools.
Yeah, and this
really?
is.
I'm not sure
something from-
Arizona's there. We have to see that. We have to double check. The KU is a good revenue generator based on basketball branding, ticket sales, everything else. But I'm not sure Arizona is.
And some of these programs too, you have to remember they're kind of new and coming up and getting some success, and that's from 2015. So it's got a long term of numbers there. So that's generally better. First off, is to kind of look at a bigger scale there. But if you're just kind of look recently and where things it might be a little bit different.
The Big Lubbock says all of the Big 10 or Big 12 viewership will jump this year. I think all college football viewership is going to jump this year.
I agree.
What do you think, you?
I think that all college football viewership is going to jump. I do think Big 12 viewership is going to jump too. I think it's going to be a really solid year for the Big 12. There's some really good time spots already on the docket. Really big time matchups too. And like, I think that Mark's positioned this conference to be really ready for that next media deal, right? And something I recently found too, you Big Ten guys too. So I'll let Dr. S talk a little bit more about this in a short video in the coming future here. But apparently, the Big Ten network has been jacking up and goosing numbers a little bit. So they're not really truly correct. They're increasing numbers in an almost unethical way. Would I say when you dive into the data, they're not nearly as good as they look, based on deep analysis. So Big Ten goosing the Big Ten network numbers.
I don't know. The check's clear.
Yeah.
The only number that matters to me.
I'm serious, guys. I'm serious. Like, and so those big numbers you see for the Big Ten network, I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm not going to say anything more. But
That's a good
I-
tease.
quit goosing your numbers.
I'm not a big proponent of the Big Ten for the future, and I think they know it, and I think that's why they're kind of working outwards, maybe with Peacock going kind of in the streaming line of things. I don't think we're going to see a Big Ten heavy streaming presence, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, yeah, that might be one of those assets that is starting to depreciate, and I don't think that would come as a surprise if that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of goosing the numbers, I'll take your word on that. I have no idea. It's never really been like a big part of figuring out where their viewership value is. It's just one of those nice things you get as a Big Ten member. Like, yeah, we're not getting showcased as much this year. Fire up the Big Ten Network and we'll watch our guys there. So that, to me, that's what it is. It's kind of, that's why they all are part owners in it. It's like something that you're doing for your fans and to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Big Ten sneaky though, very, very sneaky.
I got a comment here from Jen Knoll. Just get me out of the welfare conference. The other ACC schools are on their own. We funded them enough.
Oh, gee.
Somebody committed a murder right there.
The
Jen,
general
well
experience, you can count on that.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Jen. We know you are Florida State's #1 fan.
Definitely.
Justin Cook says, "Go Pack." We actually had a North Carolina Wolfpack guy in here,
Nice.
and he had a last name Cook. I totally could have let him cook.
Hey, I really love Jay Cook. He and I talk all the time and stuff. We DM all the time. So, dude, I want to see you in the Big 12. And so might be feel like a lot of shade with the SEC stuff, but I have a lot of Wolfpack friends, actually. I know a lot of folks over there. So want to see you in the Big 12. Want to see you guys thrive after this is over.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes left here, guys. So anything, I'm trying to get through as many comments as I can. We've had over 700 comments tonight. Anything that you must will have to be a super chat, guys. And the rest I'm going to have to defer to members on some of these. Brandon Unruh, I think Florida State and Clemson are the only teams that leave, and as part of the legal settlement to get reduced buyout, they go to the SEC. Then both have 18 teams. Other realignment doesn't happen until 2036.
It's possible. I mean,
That's kind of up your alley, Immaculate. Yeah.
What's that in terms of the 18 or
the Clemson going over the SEC and then the FSU possibly?
Yeah, and I remember going well back. I mean, people kind of think that maybe we've always said that FSU to the Big Ten, and that was not always the case. I actually was saying I would find it hard to believe that the SEC would allow Florida State to go to the Big Ten, and that they wouldn't find some way to get them to say yes. Because I think most FSU fans, if we're being for real, like ones that go to the games that maybe are in the region, they'd probably want FSU in the SEC. There's a lot of FSU fans that are like, screw ESPN, screw the SEC over what happened. And they're very loud and boisterous about it. And maybe that is a majority, but there's an awful lot who would still push, including boosters, big money boosters, who would push for them to be in the SEC. So it's possible. Maybe that gets worked out. They're playing both sides against each other, and in the end, they go to the SEC. We'll see.
Jamie Thornton, just remember this, guys. UNC can't do a single thing to get out. The NC Board of Governors makes all the decisions on UNC leave.
They can't even file a complaint on their own if it's like above $5,000 or some super low cost. Like they can only do the most barest of legal actions on their own.
Great comment, Jamie. Recommend you tell the Board of Governors to reference the Wild Ute ACC doomsday scenario to see how financials look after FSU and Clemson leave, and then they can make their decisions accordingly.
It's good advice.
Broke out the math for y'all and the present value of what that's going to look like, the reality of North Carolina and NC State.
They're going to be looking there going, why didn't we have anyone who's done that?
They've got to be doing their own analysis, right? You think the Board of Governors? I mean, I know it's politics, and so they've got to be bringing somebody in to do this.
I don't know if their analysts are coming up to the same conclusion as you, but yeah, they're doing it. They're doing their
Hey, you can hire me as a consultant. Just saying that Board of Governors and stuff. I will give you truthful recommendations here on how to handle your situation.
I'll drink whiskey and make jokes if you pay me. Shonsky, I don't think the Big Ten wants to expand much more. Remember, you're watering down your media deal, and now they're watering down their research funds also. I would counter that you're not watering down your research funds if you add people like Stanford. You're vastly increasing your research funds for all members.
And that's where the measurement comes. Like if you saw Florida State and the Clemson come first, and someone like me, I'm going to be going, where is the logic in this? And then they come back after that and say, oh, now here comes Notre Dame and Stanford and Cal and Duke. And I'm like, oh, like, because they've got the whole plan. They know what they're doing. We're guessing. So that's why if I actually see a Florida State and Clemson to Big Ten, first question I'm asking you guys is, what is next? This is not it. They're not just going to 20. Like, that idea is dead in the water, because Florida State to Clemson is not their final move. So if that's the next thing we see, then it's not the only thing we see.
They're going to Miami. Welcome to Miami. Just remember that, guys. Miami, Miami, Miami.
Yes. If you forgot that terrible song from the 1990s, you has put it
Playing in my
back
head.
here, has planted it in your head. You can take that
Going
up.
to Miami.
Pro grinding cheek clapper again. Thank you for the super chat. Cow backpack, abandoned bears. I guess that's kind of like a bad news bears, or renected bears.
I have a feeling that
That's supposed to be redacted.
The redacted?
Yeah, let me know what you were trying to. Rejected bears. Okay, rejected.
I like it, though. I like what you're thinking, and I love your name. Seriously, so many laughs tonight. You've been killing it. Troll grinding cheek clapper.
Troll grinding cheek clapper. Sergeant Pickle says, Moen, you need the Austin Powers. I love gold. I love gold. I had How About No, you freaky Dutch bastard on here, but I was afraid Dutch people might get offended.
probably.
With the number of alumni, Mike Smith, with the number of alumni, UCF should have higher viewer numbers.
I think they will. They're just, now they're finally at that level. They have a lot of other choices in California to watch, or not California, Florida, sorry, to watch. I mean, just because they went to UCF, maybe they grew up watching Florida State or Florida, Miami. But now that their school is in the major conferences, they'll probably start watching more.
Yeah, it seems like we're probably a decade away from UCF viewership being super, super strong, but it's getting there. I mean, this brand is growing for sure. Last year, as far as expectations, UCF underperformed quite sharply as far as what you'd expect from their viewership and everything. But again, this is a G5 brand that's been lifted up, right? Like, they're building that brand. They have a huge, passionate fan base, a large enrollment, but they need to get more nationwide fans jumping on to feel like compelled to watch their football games. So they need to win at a big, higher level and build that brand more nationwide. And I think in the next decade, it's going to happen. You watch out 3+ years down the road, they're going to be a powerhouse.
They need to upgrade their stadium. That's my
Bounce
opinion.
house.
They need that. They need, if they have themselves like an honest to God good stadium, that brand takes off, because people want to go there and have fun and enjoy it and feel like they're at a big time show these days. But right now, their stadium feels like it's about 2 decades age. It's, it was fine for what they were, but if what they want to be is something much bigger, they need to figure out how to get the funding and how to expand that thing like a lot of others are now.
Justin R., USF guy.
Speaking
After
of
the
which,
ACC dust settles, the next round will happen when the Big 12 TV deal is up. The most valuable brands at that time will probably get an invite.
and that's who they should be looking at, is USF and everything that USF is doing. No guarantees on where they get and where they go, but they're doing everything right in order to get there.
The St. Pete's a wonderful place, too. If you've never been to
Our
St.
friend,
Pete, go.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're still
Finish
about
the
South
thought.
Florida, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Just I just read Numbskull News. Just read that.
The Board of Governors all have GEDs like him.
Oh, I'm so good.
And then he gets this quote wrong. Let me hear your war cries. Let me see your war face. Let me see your war face.
Ooh, brother.
I'm not convinced. Work on it. Full Metal Jacket, guys. I don't know if you got that reference.
I haven't watched that show in a long time.
Wow.
But it's good to see you in the house, Numbskull. Love your stuff, man. Always good for a laugh and some introspection thought.
I may pop over to his show and tell him where TCU is going. We'll see how he takes it.
Jamie Thornton says Stanford and Duke, in my opinion, have to be who the Big really would want next.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
That's what we're
disagree
kind of
with
kicking
that.
around there. Duke is a weird one, right? Duke to like the Big Ten is on nobody's radar, but we've opened that discussion up tonight. Wouldn't say that it would be a favorite by any means or anything, but it's definitely compelling to think about that, and it definitely checks a lot of boxes in the realignment game, especially maybe as like a 22 or 23 number candidate for the Big Ten.
Just remember, the IPLC stole the University of Chicago from the BTAA. I'm sure they wouldn't mind a little bit of retribution dealt out in taking Stanford and Duke from the IPLC. I know that sounds goofy, but it matters.
It's still waiting on the.
Oh!
Wait no more.
Wait no more.
Oh.
You got it.
That would be a good one for our new super chat friend from today when he posts one up.
Yeah, I'll get some new ones on here. I got one on here I haven't played yet. Remember, Ohio State and Florida State sounds amazing. I would love it, but when you start getting into 20-plus team conferences, we will only see that matchup every 5 years, maybe, unless they make it a rivalry. You're probably right.
Yeah, I think if it's Florida State and Clemson, we probably get an Ohio State-Clemson rivalry and a Florida State-Penn State rivalry.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you there. Coy has been a member for 5 months.
Coy.
Thank you,
Thank
Coy.
you so much, Coy. Spread the word.
What if Duke was the tag along with FSU and not the Clemson Tigers?
What if?
What if? The question though is this, and like in Coy is pointing to it, is this state of North Carolina is clearly a valuable asset. We know that the population's growing, the business economy is hot and everything. I mean, the state of North Carolina is incredibly valuable territory. Can the Big Ten live within not being in that state if UNC goes to the SEC?
Can they live with it? Yes. I mean, would it be good to get there? Yes. I mean, it's just talking about the terminology. I know I'm picking that apart, but yeah, they would be fine without it. But it's still, if that becomes available to them in maybe a larger move, yeah. Even though Duke's not a big school and they tend to like bigger schools with lots of alumni to watch everything and to support, Duke kind of makes up for that with the fact that they're 5,000 grad school. Those people are going to be well above the normal pay, have a lot more money that they donate. So they kind of make up for it in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Duke, even though it's located in North Carolina, it's not really, I wouldn't consider it a North Carolina school. Like there's people from all across the East Coast who go there. It's it's an East Coast school located at a beautiful location in North Carolina. I mean, when you look at its buildings, it's super Gothic. You know, it's that old look. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hypothetically, going down the train here, okay, if you added Duke, and you could have a southeast pod of FSU, Clemson, Miami, and Duke for the Big Ten. And I'm telling you guys, like, with the travel issues with the Big Ten, you're going to have to form pods sooner or later. Like, I really think so. I mean, like, you're going to have a West Coast pod, and I think that you're going to have some type of Southern pod. And, like, especially if you add FSU, that is the number one thing, the black swan nobody's talking about is the travel concerns, because that's not just mileage and expense. We're talking about the health of the students. And like, and really a true thing is mental health of students, because of the excess of travel is something that the PAC has brought up in the past. What will still be on the radar of everybody. So if you don't grab other schools with FSU, that's why Clemson makes so much dang sense, actually. It's a travel partner with FSU. And also Miami adding a pod there and then grabbing one other Southern school to create a pod, if you will, or creating some easier travel for those schools is something that is totally in the cards, I think.
Just a little bit to that real quick. I'll be very quick because I got another one to go on to. That's kind of why I like the whole Florida State, Miami, and you could throw in Duke, because when you take those three and you mix those with Penn State, Rutgers, and Maryland, and you have yourself a 6-team division. If we're going to 24, you have 4 divisions of 6. That way you have Stanford and California out east with those 4. You got your 6. That's your signal that we're going to 6 teams per division. That's probably why I would go with 3 to mix with the Penn State, Rutgers, Maryland 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they did have to figure out something, and you're not wrong in terms of having just the Southeast pod. If maybe they go 6 divisions of 4. So you can go either direction, but just another way to think of that.
Troll grinding cheek clapper, like that old Cold War saying goes, keep BC and Pitt out, Michigan down, and Notre Dame in. Good show, good times, good night, Mafia Show. Thank you so much. You killed us tonight. You killed it tonight.
Good job,
Troll
TGCC.
grinding cheek clapper. Much appreciated, sir. And we're going to end it with a super chat tonight, guys, because I know that Immaculate is dying to answer this one. Justin R., do you think we will ever see a 4-team conference playoff? If so, who do you think would be the first conference to start it?
All of them at once, because it's going to take new rules in order to do it. So, but I mean, yeah, it would be like all the majors and all the G5s. They'd all probably start doing it all at the exact same time. And my thought, since now I've been triggered into going into it, is actually a 6-team. It'd be probably 4 division champions and 2 wild cards. So that way, when you have these divisions having 2 to 3 pretty strong teams in them, or multiple major top tier brands, you can say to the networks, hey, there's a, if they both have a 11-1 season, you're not going to be cutting out a major highly ranked program out of the tournament. And that comes down to when you're wheeling and dealing for money and how much they're going to pay you for it, that they can't come at you and say, oh, so you're saying only Ohio State or Michigan can be in it at any given year and not both? You're going to lose big money if you're the Big Ten. So, and there's cases for that in every conference. So I think it's going to come eventually. We'll have
what do you think, you?
I think that there's going to be 3 automatic qualifying conferences in the future. I think after the ACC gets hit this time around, I think that they're going to be going into a quasi A4 level, G5 level conference, and they will not be on the same playing field with any leftover schools that might remain. So I don't think there would be like an entryway for 4 different conference champions to get into some type of playoff. That's kind of how I'm thinking about this question. So I do think that there'll be 3 conferences that are essentially super conferences. The Big 12 would be the 3rd, with the SEC and the Big 10. And I think that, who knows, you could see something maybe like a 6-team structure with 2 teams in each one of those. I think it's possible to see like the champions get in a playoff and stuff in its own realm. But yeah, you need to shred off the NCAA still. That's probably going to happen given all the issues with the NCAA, but something to look forward to in the future. Definitely not imminent, but I could certainly see it. But I think it's with 3 super conferences.
I don't believe in conference tournaments. Immaculate almost had me there one time.
I know. I was like, he absolutely does not believe in it all.
I don't believe in it.
One day, one of us is going to have to look at the other and be like, good job.
Yeah, you were right.
For sure.
Yep, you were right. I'll say it when you're right. You'll say it when I'm right. All right, guys, we're going to finish it up here. What are you looking forward to this week?
Man, I'm looking forward to so much. I'm going to be missing the big freaking Friday show this week and stuff, but I'll be back next Tuesday, the normal schedule and everything. Really paying attention to really what's going on. I'm still waiting for some smoke to come out about Miami. I'm so convinced that Miami is going to be in the Big Ten, guys. Just think that it makes too much sense to do that. So I'm watching for that. I think that's the next shoe to drop. In my point of view, going back to the title of the show, I think we are in the first beginnings of seeing NC State and UNC sever. This is evidence of it with this new scheduling agreement. I think that's one thing to point to. Made a compelling argument, hopefully compelling to you, at the very beginning of this episode and everything. So love doing a show with Immaculate, my boy. Immaculate, I mean, you're on all the time still. We see you and everything, but tell people where to find you, how to connect with you and everything.
Well, I'm all about multitasking. You guys can find me much easier on Immaculate View on Twitter X. I basically just do this, but with you guys out there, I try not to be too preachy. I just try to take my view of things that come out, and sometimes I'm off, sometimes I might be on, sometimes I piss people off. It happens. But just in terms of taking the news about realignment and a few other side things that I like, and just showing my view on it. So if you're on X, if you look in there, look me up in Immaculate View, and feel free to give me your opinion on things. And every once in a while, you might still see me on here. I kind of got the itch a little bit to come back in and hang out with you guys. So we'll see.
And we appreciate you helping us tonight. I know it was short notice, and I know you had plans. And please tell your wife not to be mad at me, to be mad at you.
Yeah. Best to your
I
wife.
will do that. Wish me luck, and all your prayers or whatever you give out. Just we'll see if I'm still alive.
All right, guys. We will see you on Friday next. Follow us at the Big 12 Mafia Twitter page. If we're going to do a show tomorrow night, we'll pop it up there, but I don't believe we're going to be doing one tomorrow night. So we will see you on Friday. Some of us will see you on Friday. Peace out, guys. Thanks for watching.
Go Utes.